everyone, welcome back to In the Alley. My name is Cody. Glad you guys are back for another video. I kind of want to break up some monotony. Previews, recaps. I've done it a few weeks ago with the mid-season report card. I've done it earlier in the season with expansion talk and things like that. I want to give a little snapshot preview kind of thing with where we are at after week 14. Playoff standings, regular season standings, it's the same thing. Things along those lines, just to give us a brief little snapshot in time where we are at heading into week 15, kind of scenarios that are going on, what we are looking at, looking forward to. I know a lot of people can go probably further in depth, which fine. I don't want to make this a 30-minute, even 15-minute long video. That's not my prerogative. But what I want to do here, my hair is everywhere. What I want to do is just kind of give a brief little synopsis of where we are at. Look at the playoff picture, see what needs to happen for certain teams to win, maybe take a look at some schedules, things along those lines. So with that being said, let's go take a look at the standings, and we'll just kind of have an adventure from here on out. All right, so let's start things off here with the regular season standings as they are after week 14. It's going to pop up here. I'm going to scoot my chair over here so you can see the nice standings. Now, when we take a look at it, only one team has clinched a playoff spot as of right now. There's still 5 weeks left in the regular season. Green Bay has clinched. They have 4 games left to play. A lot of teams have 4 games left to play. A lot of teams have 5 games left to play. So some do not have any more bye weeks. A few still have like 1 bye week left. So that being said, that still gives a little bit of a reprieve for a couple of teams. If you've played 12 games, you have a bye week. So Frisco, Green Bay, Arizona, a couple of others, you'll see it. But if you played 12 games, you still at least get 1 more bye week within the next 5. If you've played 11, playing the rest of the season out. So taking a look at the standings right here, let's start at the very top with the East, work our way to the West. You can see it all here, make your own inferences, whatever. For the East, though, it is log jammed towards that middle of the pack. Massachusetts and Quad Cities seem to have kind of that inside track, but hanging around is Iowa and Tulsa. I think Sioux Falls is completely out of it, and that would even further that if Quad City gets another win, if Sioux Falls gets another loss. It's that simple. Jacksonville's practically out of it too. They're not mathematically out of it, but let's be honest, if we're following trends right now, Sioux Falls and Jacksonville are pretty much done for the year. The intriguing one is coming up this week, Iowa at Tulsa. Tulsa at Iowa. One of those teams is going to get win number 5. Quad City has a game against Green Bay where if they don't win that one, they drop to 5-7. Which, hey, I'll be at that game, so if you want to say hi, cool. Anyway, if Quad City loses that game, they drop to 5-7. If Iowa wins that game, they go to 5-7 as well, and they jump Quad City for the 4 seed. And I know we'll talk about all this in the previews and stuff later on in the week, but giving just that quick roundup synopsis right here, even if Tulsa wins, they go to 5-8. Quad City is 5-7. They're a half game back with 3 games left to play, and Tulsa still gets a bye week in there as well. So still a huge logjam right there. 4 seed, 3 seed, technically still really in flux right now. Frisco is the next team up that can clinch a playoff spot. All they have to do is win. They win, or if Tulsa beats Iowa, then Iowa drops to 8 losses. Frisco has 9. They clinch a playoff spot. They can't drop any lower than that. So Frisco can clinch in really 2 scenarios this upcoming week. They'll probably clinch, let's be honest. But yeah, that's where we're kind of at in the East. Massachusetts just kind of hanging around, but they've lost 3 straight. If they keep losing some games, Iowa could be in the mix. If they keep winning, Iowa could get a 3 seed. And that's just how, I wouldn't say bad, but this is what I said at the very beginning of the season, where I said the West is going to be tougher than the East. But I was wrong in the fact that I thought the 4 teams in the East were already pretty much decided. We're still kind of true on the Western Conference. The 4 teams haven't been decided in the East, but it's still a huge logjam between about 4 to 5 teams. Maybe even 6 if you do want to include Jacksonville in there. But yeah, just a couple more losses from Jacksonville, they're going to be mathematically eliminated. So not yet, but come on. Let's take a look at the East really quick, or the West really quick, excuse me. Logjam all throughout. 2 teams have officially been pretty much eliminated from playoff contention, Tucson and Duke City. The rest are just right there. The rest are just right there for the picking, and it could be anyone's game. If you're San Antonio, you practically need to win out. If you are San Diego, Northern Arizona, you have a chance to really apply pressure to San Antonio and knock them out of the playoff hunt if you keep winning your games. It's going to get really interesting because a lot of Western Conference matchups, I think it is this week, where you have all four Eastern Conference games against each other. So all 8 teams in the East are playing each other. All 8 teams in the West are playing each other. So there's no cross conference battles. You're just playing team in your conference. That's going to boost your conference win percentage. That's going to boost your overall win percentage if you win that game. It gives you a chance to bump up. So it can go either way here, West or East, if you win that game. For the top part of the Western Conference, it is still a logjam as well. That loss Bay Area had to San Diego improved San Diego's opportunity to get into the playoffs. If they would have lost that game and dropped to 6-6, really, they're not out of it, obviously, but a tough sled for them to go. Bay Area has come back down to earth after that game, not necessarily, but in the terms of like playoff hunt, Vegas is right there now. Arizona is right there. You're dealing with a whole bunch of teams that now at 9-1, you looked really high up on that pedestal. You've come back down. So you are right there within the sights of some of these teams. As for that middle part, Vegas, Arizona, Northern Arizona, I mean, if Arizona doesn't win that game last week, you're looking at 7-5, and now Arizona is where Northern Arizona is. See what I'm saying? It's been a huge logjam. It's only going to get tougher as the weeks go on. You've seen comments on Facebook, Twitter, whatever the case could be, about the remaining schedules for some of these teams, how easy, tough it is for some of them. I want to go take a look at some of that. I'm not going to deep dive into all of them, but just the ones that kind of interest me. Let's go take a look at those, see what we can kind of gather, not predict, but just kind of see, what we can do and what we think will be playoffs. All right, so we're going to go through a couple of schedules. I'm going to start in the Western Conference because I just think it's a lot more intriguing. And I'll tell you right now, I'm going to let Bay Area slide. Yes, they have 2 losses, but they, to me, have kind of already locked up their playoff spot in a sense. I know not mathematically, but when you just kind of look at it, I think they're going to make the playoffs. Maybe not the 1 seed. Who knows? But right now I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to start with Vegas and kind of work my way down a little bit. Just kind of touch on, I'm not going to go fully in depth, just kind of say, hey, this is what this team has left. It could be a gauntlet. It could not be. So Vegas up first, and hey, it's a gauntlet. Vegas has Arizona, Bay Area. Both are at home, so that could be good. But Arizona, Bay Area, at San Diego, and as we get later into the season, that game at San Diego could be a do or die situation for the Strike Force. They could be throwing everything at Vegas depending on how the weeks shape out. At Northern Arizona, kind of the same thing. Northern Arizona sitting at that 4 seed. We're going a month later into this season. If Northern Arizona is on the outside looking in, you better believe that they're going to give Vegas their all when it comes to, hey, one final game left in the year. After that, we'll see. Vegas does get a little bit of a reprieve at Tucson to end the season. So that does help them out a little bit, because depending on how those first 4 weeks right there go, that Tucson game, I'm not saying it's a gimme either. We know Vegas and Tucson, but depending on how those 4 weeks go, that could be something where, hey, is Vegas in a position for the 2 seed, the 1 seed? Are they even in a position for a playoff spot? That Tucson game at the end, if they win it, could very, very well be a deciding factor on their final seeding, not just in their regular season standing, but in their conference win percentage as well. So that's what we have for Vegas. It's going to be a tough, bumpy road for the Nighthawks, but they're 8-3. They're one of the teams that I think can actually pull off a couple of these wins. And honestly, if they do beat San Diego and Northern Arizona in those back-to-back weeks on the road, there's an opportunity that you might knock one of those teams out of playoff contention. So it'll be fun to see how they go out. Let's go check out the Arizona Rattlers. All right, so Arizona's schedule right here, again, just a screenshot. I'm not going fully in depth here. At Vegas, home against Iowa, home against Tucson, and at San Antonio. And that's a fairly easy schedule for Arizona. That game against Vegas, if they do happen to win it, they are 5-1 on the road. If they do win that, I think you could have 2 more wins to add on top of that. You are now going into the final week of the season on, a 7-game win streak? Yeah, at San Antonio to end the season. And that could be a game, just like we touched on with Vegas, where San Antonio is fighting for their playoff lives. I'm not saying every game for the Gunslingers right now is a playoff spot, but you lose a game or two, you're practically out depending on how some of these games go. So that final game against San Antonio could make or break their season. Arizona could have a playoff spot wrapped up within the next couple of weeks. Again, they do get a bye week in between Tucson and San Antonio, so they get a week off before playing San Antonio. That can make or break whether or not they decide to rest some starters, depending on where their playoff position is. We'll see. But anyway, I do think it's a fairly easy schedule for Arizona to end the season. Funny how that always happens. They get a bye week towards the end of the season, and it kind of shapes up for them to always make this playoff push towards the end of the season. Collusion? No, I'm just kidding. It does shape up really well for Arizona. They are playing very, very well as of late, winners of 4 in a row. Pretty good schedule for them shaping up too. If they get past Vegas, I do think they do get to at least 7 in a row. Iowa's playing pretty well. They did lose by 2 to Arizona in Des Moines. We'll see. But anyway, let's go check out Northern Arizona. All right. Northern Arizona. They do have a pretty tough schedule with a lot of playoff implications with the teams that they are playing. Now, they start off with home and homes with San Antonio and San Diego, 2 teams that are on the outside looking in. And if you drop those games, you're on the outside looking in. So this week, this Sunday, Northern Arizona and San Antonio, one of those teams, they've strengthened their idea of getting into the playoffs. This could be a make or break game for San Antonio. Simple as that. We'll talk more, obviously, in the week previews and stuff along those lines. But after that, you do have San Diego at home. That could also be a very, very tough game for them, just based on the fact that we have seen Northern Arizona. They've lost twice to Arizona, which are 2 of their losses, obviously. They have played fairly well, fairly consistently. Can they keep it up? Because after those 2 games against the San teams, they are at Bay Area. And again, like I said, I'm not touching on Bay Area, but they are still in a fight for the 1 seed and their playoffs and everything like that. So at Bay Area, depending on how those 2 weeks prior go, Bay Area could be in a position to say, hey, we're not done yet. We got to clinch this 1 seed. We got to prove we're the defending champs. It could be a tough game. And then home against Vegas. Again, if Northern Arizona can get through some of these and win some games, get a couple game win streak going, that game against Vegas could prove to be 3rd seed, 4th seed. Who does one jump the other? Where is Arizona in all of this? We don't know. So again, this is all hypothetical, but for Northern Arizona, that game against Vegas to end the season could be very, very, very crucial. Finally, they end the season at Duke City. Again, kind of like with Vegas, you kind of get a little bit of a reprieve. Duke City can still upset. They're still a rough and rowdy team, but depending on if you are on the outside looking in, that Duke City game could be something that says, hey, final game of the season, that separates us from 11-5 or 10-6 or whatever the case could be. That jumps us into the 4 seed. We are in. So I think it's a tough schedule. I think it's a nice little gauntlet for them, and these next 2 weeks will shape up, honestly, for that 4th seed. A lot of infighting there. Let's go check out San Diego and San Antonio schedules and just kind of finish out the West. All right, San Diego schedule, and they do have at Tucson this upcoming week. Now, again, we don't know. Tucson is kind of in flux. They are eliminated practically from the playoff position. And if they're not mathematically, it's damn close. So they are in the midst of a 3-game road trip at Tucson, at Northern Arizona. If San Diego can win those games, really cement themselves into the playoff push, they end the season home and home, Vegas and Bay Area. It's not like those games are going to be any easier. That's going to be a tough venture for them. You end the season with 3 teams that are in a playoff spot right now. You pretty much have your playoffs starting right now. If you lose any of these games, that game against Northern Arizona, we touched on it during the Wranglers. If you lose that game against Northern Arizona, they obviously have that win over you, so there's a gap right there. San Antonio gets any sort of wins, they can jump you. Obviously, Arizona, Vegas, those teams win, you are automatically on the outside looking in, as you already are. So that game is going to be very, very important. You got to look. I mean, we're looking ahead. I know other teams are not looking ahead. That's why we do this. But obviously, they're looking at Tucson right now. Go 1-0. But for San Diego, playoffs pretty much start now. You can beat Tucson, and you might not still be that 4th seed at the end of the day, but then you've got 3 weeks to prove yourself against teams that are already in a playoff position. If you can knock them off, all 3 of them, or even 2 of the 3, you might be able to solidify yourself and sneak into that 4 seed. So, final one, let's go take a look at San Antonio, and then we'll kind of look at the East. All right, you want to talk about a brutal schedule. You look at the San Antonio Gunslingers, not done any favors this year. They've still managed to be above 500, just barely, but the end of this schedule is going to be brutal. Can they do it? We're about to find out. They're at Northern Arizona this weekend. We touched on them during the Wranglers schedule. You lose this game, I'm not saying you're out, but you have a very, very tough uphill climb. Then you're home against Frisco, home against Massachusetts, 2 teams that are in the playoffs on the eastern side. You're at Tucson. Again, not to say that that's a gimme game, but Tucson, they do fight tough. We'll see what happens. But again, for all intents and purposes, I'm just kind of counting that as a win. Sorry, Tucson. Maybe win some games. Home against Arizona to end the season. And again, depending on how those first 3 games go, at Naz, home against Frisco, home against Mass. If you go 0-3 in those games, don't even worry about the playoffs. You're done. You're toast. If you can get 2 of those 3, or even get on that 3-game win streak, which would turn into a 4-game, 5-game win streak with Duke City and Massachusetts wins, you're looking at a very, very outside shot. You might have a tiebreaker against Northern Arizona at that time, or depending on what wins and losses happen, maybe San Diego as well, depending on conference win percentage, what have you. We'll see. But for me, this is probably the toughest schedule out of the 5, 6 that we've looked at, whatever, for the West. I don't necessarily think San Antonio gets in, especially if they only win one of these next 3 games. That's just how I see it. In that Arizona game, it could prove to be, hey, we're just going to be there to play spoiler. You're not going to get the 1 seed or the 2 seed, what have you. We'll see. But yeah, that's a very, very tough schedule to end the year for San Antonio. As much as I want to see them get into the playoffs in their first year, I just think it's kind of a long shot. So, that being said, let's go take a look at some of the teams in the East, kind of see how that logjam goes, and we'll get on out of here. All right, going from the top down in the East, I'm not doing Frisco, I'm not doing Green Bay, just for the simple fact that they're practically clinched. We'll start with Massachusetts as the schedule pops up. 3 of their final 4 games are on the road. That is tough, and out of those games, the one that I wouldn't say is winnable, but the one that you probably look at saying, hey, we have a chance here, is at Jacksonville this upcoming weekend. Now, it's at Jacksonville, so the Shark Tank can be tough. You did play them kind of close in the first go-around this season. We'll see. But after that, it's pretty much teams that are fighting for playoff spots or are in a playoff spot. Home against Quad City, at San Antonio, and at Tulsa. We've talked about San Antonio and their little blip. It's going to be a very, very tough game for that, especially depending on how Mass does in those first 2 games. They do hold their destiny as the 3 seed. Now, if they drop that game against Jacksonville, Quad City beats Green Bay by some means, you are now looking at a very, very tough 3, 4 seed, 5 seed. It really starts to thicken. You got to take care of business, especially at home against Quad City. At San Antonio, like I said, is going to be tough, and then at Tulsa. That game at Tulsa to end their season could be something along the lines of Tulsa needs that win to get in, kind of like last year with Quad City needing to win, Sioux Falls needing the win to get the 2 seed, what have you. It could be something along those lines. So Tulsa definitely not out of it. San Antonio not out of it right now. Quad City still holding that 4th seed. I wouldn't say it hinges on Massachusetts, but if they take care of business, then it just kind of falls in line. So let's go take a look at Quad City and the rest of the East. All right, 5 games left for the Steamwheelers. Home against Green Bay, at Massachusetts, home against Sioux Falls, at Tulsa, at Jacksonville. When you just look at the records, I'm not saying this is an easy schedule, but it's one of the easier ones just based on schedule. Now we know schedule means nothing. It's the NFL style, any given Sunday, Saturday, whatever. So the game against Green Bay coming up is not a do or die, but if you lose that game, not everything is bad. But if you lose the game against Green Bay, you lose against Massachusetts, you've now lost 3 in a row. Now you're playing a Sioux Falls team that is not out of the hunt yet. They could make some noise. Then you're at Tulsa and at Jacksonville, and at Tulsa, that could make or break whether or not Tulsa gets in. We'll talk about Tulsa and Iowa here in a second. They have a huge matchup coming up this weekend, but depending on how those first 2 games go, Green Bay and at Massachusetts, you got to win one of those. You have to win one of those if you are Quad City. And if you don't, if you are 0-2 taking a 3-game losing streak home to Sioux Falls, you need to win Sioux Falls and Jacksonville. You got to do something to kind of just limp your way into the playoffs by any means necessary, depending on how the rest of the teams and their games play out. So it lines up for you if you can win the games. And I know that's but you have to take care of business. You have a very tough task right now. That loss against Iowa last week, it really kind of set you back. It really, really, really set you back. Not saying that they didn't deserve to win, not that Iowa didn't deserve to win, but for Quad City, now you got 5 games left. What can you do here? You're sitting at 500. You got to go make the most of it. You might sneak in at 8-8. We'll see what happens. But for the Steamwheelers, I do think this is a little bit of an easier schedule. Time will tell. We'll see what happens. Let's go check out Iowa, Tulsa. We'll get out of here. Okay, so for the I almost said Steamwheelers. I'm looking at the schedule. For Iowa, they just beat the Steamwheelers. And then you're playing Tulsa, at Arizona, home against Jacksonville, home against Sioux Falls, at Frisco. This too, just based on records, might be one of the easier schedules to finish with. Now, this game against Tulsa is very, very important. Whoever wins this game is going to get win number 5, and you're hoping Quad City loses to Green Bay to inch that much closer. And if you're Iowa, you're hoping you're the team that wins against Tulsa, because that gives you the opportunity to be within, half a game or a game of the Steamwheelers. You don't play each other for the rest of the season. You might be able to take care of business against Jacksonville. You might be able to take care of business against Sioux Falls. Is that enough to get you in? I don't know. At Arizona, at Frisco, 2 teams that are very well in the playoff mix. Do you count those as losses already? Like I said, you played Arizona close, but now you're on the road and not at home. And for Frisco, have they played Frisco yet? Quick peek. No, they have not played Frisco yet. So that could be a fun game. It's down in Texas. Frisco could be fighting for that 1 seed. Who knows? But for Iowa, is this an easier schedule than Quad City? Not necessarily, but if you can take care of business, if you're Iowa, if you win 3 of these next 5 games, you're sitting at 7-9. Does that get you into the playoffs? I think you have to beat Arizona or Frisco. I'm not saying they have to win out, because Lord knows Quad City might not win out. They might drop. 7-9 might get you into the playoffs, but you've got to win one of those games. You've got to pull an upset, or you got to hope that Quad City or Massachusetts just kind of falls apart. So I'm not saying they're all must wins, but you got to win those games at home at least if you want a chance. So let's go take a look at Tulsa really quick, wrap up their schedule, get our final thoughts, look at where we're at with the playoff picture, and get out of here. Final team, Tulsa. At Iowa, 3 straight home games to end the season. Home against Green Bay, home against Quad City, home against Massachusetts. Now, we have talked tough schedules. And again, the definition of tough kind of depends on the eye of the beholder. I think this is a very tough schedule for Tulsa to get in. Now, they do have some help in the event of they kind of control their destiny. If they beat Iowa in Des Moines this upcoming weekend, they don't jump them, but they are half a game behind them, if I'm not mistaken. No, they jump them. They jump them. Never mind. I'm stupid. And then, yeah, the Green Bay game. We know Green Bay is tough. You might not beat them. Who knows? But then you control your destiny, depending on how Quad City's season goes in their games. Like I said, they play Green Bay, they play Massachusetts. There's a chance that they could be had. You have an opportunity if you are the Oilers. If you win that game, not saying you're in the driver's seat, but you still need some things to break your way probably to get you into that playoff spot. As for the final game, that could be the game that makes or breaks your season into the playoffs. If you beat Massachusetts, if you go on a 4-game win streak right here, you end up with 8-8. Does that get you into the playoffs? I don't know. Now, again, if you win the game against Iowa, you win the game against Quad City, you are sitting at 6-8. You lose those 2 games, Green Bay and Mass, you're 6-10. That's not getting you in. I think you at least need 7 wins. So you got to pull an upset against Mass or Green Bay, and you got to hope that Iowa and Quad City both drop some stuff, and that win against Massachusetts at the end, if you pull it off, is an opportunity for you to really kind of sneak in there with a 7-9 record. Quad City and Mass are in the driver's seat right now. It's going to take a little bit to upset them, but hey, getting that win against Iowa this upcoming weekend really kind of puts you right there at the precipice of getting that 4th seed. So that's it for all the schedules, taking quick little peeks at them. Let's go take a look at the current playoff picture, and we'll just wrap it all up. All right, so we've looked at the schedules for teams that are just kind of right there. Current playoff picture as it is: Northern Arizona traveling to Bay Area, and then Arizona traveling to Vegas on the west side. San Diego, San Antonio, Tucson, and Duke City all outside looking in. And on the east side, or east whatever, Green Bay, or Quad City traveling to Green Bay, Massachusetts traveling to Frisco, with Iowa, Tulsa, Sioux Falls, and Jacksonville all outside looking in. It just feels like Massachusetts and Frisco play every single playoffs. I think I had them in my predictions. I don't know. It just seems like they're always in the playoffs. Now, it just seems like somehow they always find their way to each other some way, or they're always close. I don't know. I don't think they played each other last year, because Quad City played Frisco and Sioux Falls played Mass. But anyway, I don't know. It just seems like they always somehow wind up together at some point. It's just probably the Mandela effect, but whatever. It's probably not even the right way of using that, but whatever. Anyway, there's your playoff picture. As we've talked with everyone's schedule, things along those lines, it's going to take quite a bit to kind of unseat Quad City. They need to have a dramatic collapse. Like I said, you're looking at Iowa and Tulsa. Does 7-9 get you into the playoffs? You got to hope Quad City loses quite a bit of their games. They're already 6-6. So all Quad City has to do is probably win 2 of their next 4 games. They're probably in the playoffs, depending on what their conference win percentage is versus their opponents. Massachusetts, same thing. They're 6-5. They've got 5 games left to play. They have an opportunity to, if they win 1 more game, win 2 more games, they are also pretty much solidified in. So the Eastern playoff picture can really solidify itself within like the next 2 weeks. The West is a little more dramatic, which I'm looking forward to, but we do have quite a bit of teams playing each other. Again, Vegas and Arizona playing each other this upcoming weekend, so it's a preview of what is going on right now. But that's where we're at. It's just going to be a fun home stretch here. Final month and a week left in the season. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to give this little snapshot just to break up recaps and previews and things along those lines. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something or nothing or anything. It's just something stupid. But anyway, taking off here, guys. Love and appreciate you. That being said, like, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 all that stuff. That being said, I'm taking off here. See you.